you.
Sitting here with Mr. Tubb, Ernest Tubb's nephew.
Nephew.
He's in your family. And
Ernest and my pappy were brothers. And, we used to live in San Antonio. I was born on Porter Street in San Antonio. Mom and Dad and Uncle Ernest and Aunt Elaine lived in one side of a duplex, and my folks lived on the other side. So that's where I was born, and Justin was born there too, on Porter Street in San Antonio. Then they, not too long after that, they moved to Fort Worth, and then before you know it, E.T. did Blue Addie Lane, and that was a minor hit, and got him recognized by Decca Records, and they decided to give him another contract, and that's a good thing they did, because the next thing out of the box was Walking the Floor Over You, and he was off and running after that.
big hit at when about what time year was that?
Well, that was in 1942. The first I remember hearing about it, and he was he did some movies actually before he even came to the Opry. He came to the Opry in '43, and I met a fella years later after we moved up here, and after I started playing music, and he was 10 or 12 years older than me, and he told me that he was in the audience first time Ernest Tubb walked on the stage of the Opera and did Walking the Floor Over You, and he said it was just unbelievable. He said he lost count of the encores. They just kept bringing him back, and so that was quite an occasion. According to my friend, he said he had never seen anything like that, and nobody else had.
Yeah.
You know. I assume this is a true story. I read this, and I hope it's true because I wrote a song about it. But Owen was being interviewed by a music magazine, and they asked him if he could put his finger on what made Music City, USA, what brought about the change in this town, because the Opry had already been here for a good while.
Yeah.
And he said, that's easy. He said, the day that Ernest Tubb came to town. And I thought, boy, what a good title for a song. so I wrote that booger. But he's more in town by the people in the music business here. I think he's best remembered for his kindness to everyone and the number of people that he helped give a leg up in the business. I would dare say at one time probably 50% of the Grand Ole Opry was put there by Ernest, and he didn't have any jealousy in him. He wasn't jealous of another artist. He was very comfortable with who he was, and so consequently, somebody needed help, he'd say, hey,
Right.
yeah. And that was one of the main reasons he started the Midnight Jamboree at his record shop every Saturday night after the Opry.
Right there on Broadway.
Yeah, well, it started up on Commerce Street.
Oh, okay.
The first shop was up there. Everybody thinks that was
Right.
the first one, but it wasn't.
Yeah.
But anyway, he originally started that as a not just a way to advertise the records that he was selling in the
Right.
shop, but to give a new artist
A chance.
a chance to be heard by people in the music industry because at that time this was a new thing. This radio show that was following the Grand Ole Opry, and being after midnight, WSM became a clear channel then, and the Midnight Jamboree reached more people than the Grand Ole Opry did. So it was a pretty good deal to get on the Midnight Jamboree to sing your songs because people all over, even way out ships at sea, they said could pick it up easy.
Yeah.
But you know, he did a lot of stuff like that, giving people a leg up. I just don't feel like he's had near the recognition that he should have had.
Yeah.
I discovered so much about the man after I decided to put this tribute show together. He did things that's never been done before or since. There was a period in 1949 and 1950. He had 24 hits in 24 months. Now, how do you have a new hit record every month?
A lot of writing, a lot of dedication.
Number one, they wouldn't let you do that today. There's not a record company out there to let you put out a new record every month.
Right.
You know, it takes them 30 days to get their publicity geared up. But, you know, and I think the year before he had 8 or 9. It was just unbelievable. And, of course, he was the first one that ever took country music to the stage of Carnegie Hall in New York. That was unheard of. I mean, they had nothing but grand opera there. But, and, you know, like I said, he made some movies before he even came to the Grand Ole Opry. So he was pretty well on his way before he showed up here. But he did so much, but like I say, the main thing he did is he helped so many others
That's great.
get there. And that built our business into what it is today. And Lord, I hope he's not watching all this too close down here. What we've got masquerading as country music now is just a shame and a disgrace. But
it's definitely turned to a different side. Country music's definitely involved or revolved, you know, since the 50s. But country music is classic music all the way back, you know, to our founding days, just about that, and blues.
Absolutely, absolutely.
You yourself has had a couple hits and done some work with Johnny Cash and some others, haven't you?
Well, first major national hit I had was by Johnny Cash. It's a thing we wrote when we was working with him called Home of the Blues, and it's done quite well. In fact, somebody told me just 3-4 months ago that Nora Jones, a pop singer, has done that song, and I said, "You got to be kidding." They said, "No, I saw it on YouTube," and so I looked on YouTube, and sure enough, she was singing it, and boy, she did a great job on it too.
That's great. She's
got some pipes on her. She's a great singer. But I was very lucky. I had my first song cut by Uncle Ernest in 1952, and I was lucky. It was a Christmas song, and I was really lucky because that was the only Christmas album he ever made. So every year that same thing just keeps going round and round. That's 60 years.
It definitely helps. As a songwriter, even myself, I got a couple of seasonal songs that I know that, you know, I put them. It kind of fell in place, but I kind of wrote them to be every occurrence, just like this newest song I put out. It's called 9/11, you know, September 11th. So just about every year, you know, you probably hopefully you'll wind up hearing that. But, you know, it's something you got to think about as a writer, is your future and stuff, because, you you throw one song out there and it gets left behind, you know, and it's not a seasonal song or something like what you're talking about, a reoccurring Christmas song or something like that. You know, you're gonna see royalties off at one time.
Well, you know, like I said, I really got lucky on that one, and the you know, the record clubs, Reader's Digest, and Time Life, and Rhino Records, and all those people, they put it out, you know, in the compilation albums that they make, and oh, it's had a long ride, 60 years. That's
Definitely got some inspiration in your songs and really heartfelt messages and stuff. And it's, you can tell you've worked on it and not just thrown it together, you know. That's what I see as a songwriter.
It if you call yourself a songwriter, you should put everything you've got into it and everything you know how to do, and make it the best that you can make it.
Rewrite.
Rewrite and rewrite and rewrite, but don't write it to death, because you can't overwrite.
Verses and forget about which verse you're using, right? That's my problem.
Yeah, I got a new one. I'm writing about. I think I've about got it done. It's about a songwriter who's God's always admired country songwriter, and he wants to be one himself. So he comes to Nashville, and he goes down to the Ryman Auditorium and stage door, steps down there, and he sits down there with his guitar, and trying to put some songs together, waiting on the ghost of Hank Williams to come along and whisper something to him and all. It's called Ryman After Ryman. And I was telling the story, but I really got bogged down in the story and lost sight of the gold. And I said, well, let's just go through here and do some weeding. And I got rid of somewhere between 50 and 75% of everything I'd written. And the song's pretty good now.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes you can write so many words that they get in the way of your story.
Yeah.
And it would have made a nice little book, but it was not a song the way I had it. I just told too much.
Yeah.
And you got to know when to shut up.
You got to find a way to cram what you want to say in 3 minutes.
Yeah, and some of the things you think you need to say, you don't really need to say that, because people can figure a whole lot of stuff out for themselves. They're not as dumb as some people think they are. You know, Hank Williams told me one time, he said, you know, keep it simple. He said, John, he called him John, out there in the cornfield. He said, if old John out there in the cornfield can go back to his house at night and tune in to Grand Ole Opry and hear your song, and if he can pick up his little old Gene Autry guitar and find those chords and play it, he said, you got a hit.
Yeah.
He said, don't get too fancy. I got to spend the night with him and his mama in Austin about 10 days before he died, and he sang me Cheating Heart, Colitis. The record hadn't come out yet. And I sang him I'll Be Walking the Floor This Christmas, that me and Justin wrote, that Uncle Ernest recorded. And that was the only decent song I had at that time. I was 17 years old. Yeah. And I was playing nightclubs down there. But, you know, when you're playing nightclubs, you have to learn to play whatever the audience wants.
Right.
So I learned quite a bit on the guitar.
Covers and everything.
And he was, you know, he asked me, he said, how many chords you know on that guitar, boy? And boy, I showed off there and showed him everything. He just sat there and grinned. He said, is that it? And I said, yeah. He said, well, forget them all but 3, and don't use the 3rd one unless you have to.
I feel you.
And, you know, and I got to thinking, well, here's a man who's been kind of successful with songwriting, and
Very